I want to talk to you about something very near, very dear, very clear to my heart. It's a king called King Daddledingo. I love him. Now, here's my problem. Throughout the years, his design has changed quite a bit. In a way I'm not a big fan of, and I want to explain exactly what happened and why it's bad. So here we see the king in his most pure state from Kirby's Adventure, right? First game, first appearance, this is what he looked like. You can see he's what? A penguin. Beak, cool. Pretty good size compared to the rest of him. Very big, very expressive because he's a cartoon character. Similar with the eyes, a little close together, kind of smushed, but he's a cartoon character, so they're big and they're together because that's how eyes are. And then the rest of him, he's kind of got this like egg shape, cool, very nice, like that. He's got his little hands, no problem. Hammer, pretty easy. I'm not sure what's up with these feet. They're weirdly pointed, but that's okay. And his robe is nice and big and flowing. Oh, look at that. Look at those action lines. Look at how dynamic that cape is. How fun, how interesting. That's so much good. This is a good design. He's a lot of fun. A little excessive, I think. Maybe there's too much going on around here with the yellow and the red and the blue and the white, but the rest of them is pretty simple. Red, red, white, white, yellow, blue. You get it. It's nice and easy. Very cohesive. Easy to look at because it's all the tertiary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Very cool. Very nice. No problem. So that's the first game. How about the next one? Alright, he's still good. Not much has changed. The only difference is maybe his eyes are a little bit further apart this time, you see? That might just be a difference of how thick the lines are, though. Everything is still pretty much the same. All the proportions are about there. The robe is still weirdly big. Maybe it's even bigger than over here. Or it might just be the angle he's at because now he's kind of going this way, so the robe coming out this way, whereas before he's straight down, so it just comes out across the sides there. It might really just be the angle. Feet are still kind of pointed, but that's okay. He's pretty much the same design. It's pretty much the same thing. Colors are a little different, but that might just be the specific samples I got for myself right here. All right, so now we move on to the Super Nintendo, and this is a design in Kirby Superstar, which is, you'll notice, less egg based and a little bit more we're starting to form into this like dual circle shape. So he's got one circle here, it's more like an oval, and one circle here for the head, but it's still kind of connected by the robe like this. So it's still egg shaped, but a little bit more bottom heavy, you see? Whereas before it's just like an oval. Now he's a little bit more, it's more like a pear than an egg, if that makes sense. His feet are starting to smooth out a little bit, that's okay. Ultimately, this design I still think is fine. The eyes are decidedly more close together than they are here, that's okay. And the little emblem on his head is starting to take a little bit more presence, you'll notice. It's like the size of his eyes by now. And they kind of are here too, but the rest of him is so big it kind of makes sense. But now the rest of him is kind of shrunken a little bit. Look at how tiny these arms are compared to how they are here. You see, even if they're bent, even if they're outstretched, it would be like that. And his hand would be about here. They're very, very tiny arms. So that's okay. I don't mind that. I don't mind him generally shrinking. Because what that means is that they're allowed to accentuate his proportions a little bit more, make him a little bit more chibi, right? So his belly's a little bit bigger in comparison. His little emblem is a little bit bigger. His eyes are a little bit bigger. It's fine. At the sake of his arms and getting a little bit smaller. So that's okay. We're starting to see a little bit less robe. You'll notice it doesn't flow out anymore, really. It just kind of constricts to his body shape, which is... this design is still okay, but it's starting to show through a little bit of what I'm not enjoying here. And that's mainly the fact that the head and the body are separate and that the robe is so constrictive. And we'll see that only accentuates as we progress. But before it progresses, it actually regresses, and it begins to be the best design in history. This is fucking amazing. This is the best penguin design I've ever seen in my entire life. This is a Kirby Dreamland 3 DDD, I think, and even outside of the art style, look at how fucking striking this silhouette is. He's back to his egg shape. He's got the big fucking robe that's going outside of his silhouette. That's dope. That's fucking badass. His emblem is really big, so it's still very prominent. His eyes are pretty big as well. At this angle, we can't really see how close they are together, but you can insinuate that the next one would be like about right there, pretty close together. Probably something like that one. God, what a cool design. And then his chest is a little bit more prominent, so this middle bit doesn't feel so tight like it does in the previous designs. You'll notice it's all very small. But now since his chest is so big, it makes sense to have this be a little bit more extra designed so that your eye has something to look at besides just flat blue. Whereas before, if this was flat blue, there would be almost no difference. Now there's a reason. Now there is a reason for this chest piece. Very cool, very cool. And like I said, the robe is fucking massive. That's so cool. His big circle egg shape. Oh, perfect, perfect. This is a good design. I would say this was the perfect one. If they didn't make it even better with Kirby 64, baby. It's literally just this one, but in 3D, and I love it. You'll notice the robe, same thing, kind of goes outside of his silhouette because it's so poofy, goes up past his neck, you'll see, similar to this one. Past his neck, emblem is massive, very cool. The chest piece makes sense because now that he's in 3D, you're going to see him at more angles, and his chest is going to be focused a little bit more because you can see him from the front, and so it makes sense for there to be stuff here even more than there was here. So now it's not just a matter of size, but also more directions to see him from, so it makes sense to have a little bit more extra design. You'll notice now there is white where there wasn't before, for the sake of something a little bit more visually stimulating. It's harkening back to this bit over here. Very cool. Still egg-shaped. You'll notice there is a little bit of a chin here, and that's kind of spooky, but I think that's only because he's a 3D model and they wanted his beak to move up and down like that. So that makes sense. Because it would make sense if he was just an egg and the beak just kind of moved around on an axis like that. So it makes sense to have a chin there for the sake of 3D. That makes sense. But he's still decidedly egg-shaped because of that robe coming up over his neck there. Very cool. Also as a side thing, his you'll notice his little poof, circle, 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 circle. Now it's like this flaring out a little bit. That's dope. That's so fucking cool. I love that. Very cool. I love how it flares out. Love the big emblem. Love the chest piece actually having a purpose now. Love his robe coming up over his neck. Very cool. This is my favorite King Dedede design. Only because it's literally just this, but better. There's another picture because I love him so much. How fucking perfect. Very cool. And the next time we would see King Dedede is not on the GameCube, but on the, well, actually, I guess he was on the GameCube in a trophy in Smash Brothers Melee, but I think it was pretty much just like one of these designs, but as a trophy, I think probably this one. But now we see him in Brawl, which is okay. It's not bad. Like the rest of Brawl, it's pretty homogenized. So it's like, okay, well, what does King Dedede look like? He's round, okay. He's got that. He's got a little puff on his head. Big emblem looks fine. Like, I don't know. It's standard. If you ask somebody to draw King Dedede and they didn't really have any inspiration on any part of him, it would probably look like this. You notice the robe is flaring out just a little bit, but it's just a robe. It's not anything crazy like it is here, and it's not coming up over his neck like it is here. It's just a robe. That's what it is. And that's fine. Now he's wearing like some robes underneath his robes. I'm not even sure exactly what texture this is supposed to be. It looks like a fucking Jedi, but whatever. His eyes are fine distance apart. It makes sense. It's not off-putting, but it's not as close together as I like them to be, I guess only because of Brawl trying to be a little bit more realistic here. If he had his eyes any closer, he'd start looking like Sonic, so that makes sense. His arms are starting to grow a little bit again. You'll notice over here they're still pretty tiny. They're pretty big here, but that's only because he's fucking massive. I still kind of like the small arm design here, but King Dedede does it well here. And yes, now they're proportioned like regularly sized arms, no problem. Elbow would be like about there, I guess, at this position. You know, regularly sized. If he was to put his arms down, they would be like about here, at his hips, which is where arms are supposed to be, so that makes sense. Whereas with King Dedede here, his arms would be like at the middle of his torso. Very cartoony, but this is a little bit more realistic. So that's fine. This is a good detail. This is like those, you know when girls are like wearing those little stockings, and then the thigh does that shit where it's like poof, it just pours out just a little bit. That's dope. He's got that going on. Big fan. And now comes the beginning of the end. I feel like this was an okay design, but the things they decided to continue with it were the exact opposite of what they should have done, because boom, oh god, Oh, look at this fucking monstrosity. Oh, holy lord. Let's talk about why this is so bad. First of all, his head is way too pronounced. Look at how much detail that circle has, as opposed to something like here where it isn't even there. It's just boom, boom. See? But now he's actually got like rounded head that goes outside his beak goes outside of his face. And then just it makes this really awkward silhouette of like, very, very weird. He's no longer. You remember how over here I said he was starting to turn a little bit more pear-shaped? This is pear-shaped King Dedede. See what I mean? He is no longer an egg, he is a pear, which is not a good shape. I'm not a fan of it. His arms are weirdly long again, so if he was put them down, he'd probably reach like about his legs, like a little bit past his hips. That's kind of weird. I guess this one is at an angle or something, because if it was straight all the way down, it wouldn't be quite that, quite there. The puff is back to being just a regular circle, kind of uninspired, but whatever. The fact that there's a puff there at all is pretty cute, so I'll let it pass. The emblem is getting perhaps a little bit too big. Kinda, I don't know. Maybe just, I don't know, it might be because his eyes are so far apart, but suddenly all of his proportions seem really, really odd. The fact that everything is so big seems really uncomfortable, because his body itself is about the size of the head. Just a little bit bigger, you know? Just a little bit. So then the fact that the eyes are so big and then the emblem is even bigger, look at how fucking massive. Plus his arms, very weird. This is like King Dedede if he was a gorilla instead. I don't like this. This is a bad design. And then I was about to say it's the worst one, but I forgot. I forgot that they literally made him even worse. Oh, look at how fucking disaster. Look at how fucking disgusting. Eyes as far apart as they could possibly be without being literally on the side of his head like a fucking sparrow. Not even a pair anymore, just literally two circles for the body and the head. Disgusting. Arms are not bad. That's okay. Uh, I like how the chest piece is bigger so that it makes more sense that it's on him and it's got this little blue line out instead. It's kind of pretty. That's fine. But like, gosh, I don't like the snowman build. I really don't. I don't like the circle on circle. I don't like how far apart the eyes are. And the beak is big again, but like in a way where his top beak is so big, like the top of his beak is as big as one of his eyes. Do you see? Look at this. Look at how big that fucking schnoz is. Very weird, very gross. This King DD makes me very, very uncomfortable. I don't like him. This is the worst one because it is like exact opposite of this guy. You see what I mean? He's everything good about this, but blown way out of proportion to the point where it's terrible. You see what I'm talking about. Which brings us to today, to the game that was just released yesterday, Star Allies, where he's still kind of keeping the snowman build, but they kept in mind the proportions a little bit. So his head is smaller. So he's kind of back to being pear-shaped, but not an egg. Not an egg no longer. His head is now extremely defined by being separate from his body, so that's weird because then, like, where is the neck if he has the front of his head here, but then the rest of him is down like that? What kind of sense does that make as a shape? That's very awkward, very disgusting. Eyes are still a little bit too far apart, but not nearly as bad as they are here, thank God. Here, his emblem literally has to be there. If you took his helmet off, it would look like a fucking monster. Very disgusting. Here, it makes a little bit more sense. There's an okay distance. Emblem is still kind of cutting in between them for the sake of the design, but that's okay, because it at least reads a little bit better. Nose is still way too big, exactly, same size as the eyes as last time, which is just not a good choice. There's too many things of similar size on his face. It makes it really gross to look at, because like, oh, his eyes are the same size as his nose, and then his head thing is even bigger, but not by much, so it looks the same-ish. I like how big the puff is, but it's no spiky. Let's see. His arms are okay. I don't know, kind of weirdly big, but not in the way I've described before. Not big as in long, big as in wide. Look at how much mass they're taking up as compared to something like this. You see what I mean? Maybe, I don't know, it might be just be a proportional thing, because now they are kind of the length they wouldn't need to be to match the length of them, the width they would need to be to match the length. But it's just kind of, I don't know. This King Dedede feels like an estranged uncle, where it's like, oh yeah, that definitely is somebody I should know, but like, I don't know, looking at them makes me kind of uncomfortable, and I want to go back with my mom. I don't want to be around him anymore. It's that kind of way. And now the chest piece is smaller for some reason because it's not even on his chest anymore. It just is on his stomach, which was a bad idea if they moved it up to be like that. So it actually matched. It actually gave you something to look at instead of give you half of something to look at. All this empty space and then suddenly a whole bunch of shit down here that makes no sense. The one thing I will say, good job on smoothing out the feet. That's okay, because here they're still. I guess they're okay there too. When did they start smoothing out? I haven't been even paying attention. I guess really just past the first 2 games. That's fine. The other thing to take notice, I guess, is the pupil size, because they're kind of small here. I think part of the problem with his eyes here not only is how wide they are, how far apart they are, but how big the pupils are in comparison. And that's the same problem here. They're kind of small here, you know, so you got equal parts pupil, eye. That's fine. Nice balance. But now it's not enough. Now it's not enough pupil to match the rest of the eye. If you moved his eye over here, all this would be white. Everything that isn't pink right there would be white. That is way too much. But also, this is way too little. So it's just, I don't know what it is about King Dedede's eyes, but these people just have a hard time figuring it out. They had it perfect. They used to know what they were doing. Like, if they brought this over to this design, that would be okay. But just not enough pupil, too much space in between still. Emblem, I don't know. I've been harking on about the emblem, but I guess it is pretty definitive, so it's okay that it's so large. Let's see. How about the hammer? The hammer size has kind of gone down a little bit, hasn't it? So here it's bigger than his head, and here it's about the size of his head. It's hard to say because it's behind him, but I like the size here. I like if they kept the size of this hammer and then brought it over with this DDD. Actually, that's kind of what they did. That's kind of what 64 DDD is. Okay, never mind. Yeah, 64 DDD just is the perfect one. This Switch DDD is much better than the 3DS DDDs, which leads me to believe they're going in a better direction with them, but I don't know. I really don't like how pronounced his head is as being separate from his body. That's really disgusting. Really bad choice. I don't know why they insist on doing that. Look at how fucking dope this is. Look at how fucking cool. And the only thing that's separating his head from his body is his beak, and that would turn just fine. This is fucking gross. That's disgusting. I don't like that. The state of affairs for King Dedede is pretty low. Pretty, sad to me, but I have faith. They're making him, he's no longer a snowman. He's back to his pear shape. So hopefully with time, we can go back to the egg.